Okay, chapter 8, Prairie Girl. The first summer and autumn of the homestead came to an here and with a fierce blizzard swept over Dakota Territory. On October 15th, 1880, for 3 days blowing snow filled the air, Laura said, to wind shrieked and howled like nothing under a heaven blizzard. Wind, instincts, and of his early storm stunned many of these settlers. Pa was once Pa was concerned he knew how thin walled the shanty of the claim was. An old Cynic's Indian wandered into Dave Smith one autumn day with his homemade pronouncement. He said it was a terrible winter was ahead on the prairie. He said sexualist Indians that severe winters every 7th year. 1880 and a 37-year cycle. And the Indians predict the cold and snow would be especially severe. The Indians' prophecies convinced Pa that should move his family to town. His building at the corner of Main and 2nd Street stood solid empty, and Pa wanted to be a good place to spend the winter. Pa huddled his haystacks there. One day, he and Ma loaded a wagon with furniture, clothes, and bedding. They settled in town in time for Laura and Carrie to begin school. Dave Smith had grown during its first year. A congregational church had been started, and school building was ready to open. Laura and Carrie joined the 15 pupils of Dave Smith School, which was opened on 1st November. Another excessive blizzard struck during a school day, and Laura and Carrie struggled to find their way home. Blizzard always interrupted activity in a western town like Dave Smith. The little settlements were all dependent on the daily trains for food supplies, fuel, and mail delivery. When the snow blocked all the tracks, it just filled the railroad. Cuts had been hollow for the hills. Trains were delayed. Pa and the other men from Dave Smith helped clean off the railroad tracks with shovels, but as quickly as they finished the job, a new blizzard seemed to strike. It was not long until coal supplies were low and stores started to run out of food. Schools was canceled in a fight until there was coal to heat with the building. The blizzards continued. Christmas came and went, and into the train in the narrow kitchen of Pa's building, the English family crowded together around the stove. Laura tried to continue studying her school books and repeated all the lessons to Mary, but it was hard to read in the dim light. The windows were gray sheets of rolling snow. Ma lit the lamp only when she had to in order to conserve the precious carriers on. The small stocks of food and Dave Smith began to give out. Laura and Ma gasped, and Pa reported that the last sack of flour in town sold for $50 and the last sugar for $1 a pound. Without coal, some people carelessly burned lumber, approached a high price, but Pa was thrifty and had better ideas. He told his family they will keep warm with hay. Using the hay they huddled from the homestead, Pa and Laura twisted the hay into sticks. A handful of hay, Laura explained, was twisted him a rope. The double allowed to twist back on itself, and the two ends came together in a knot. Through the long winter, those hay sticks fed the hungry stove, keeping the temperature in the kitchen above freezing. In January 1881, the railroad company announced that it was suspending services until spring. It could not cope with blizzards that struck frequently and that often lasted for days with snow drifts that sometimes reached for 40 feet. For the English family went back to know the hard winter was a daily battle for the heat. Food most people were too terrified to leave shelter during their short breaks between the blizzards. Only Pa and the two wild brothers ventured out a day Smith to haul in the woods of hay. Royal and Almanza Wilder spent the hard winters in their grain beet store on the main street. On their homesteads north of town, they had raised wheat crops and cut sacks of hay during the previous summer. The brothers sold hay, and Dave's master's supply of wheat was a secret. Only Pa knew that it was hidden in the feed store. The Wilders wanted to plant their seed wheat in the spring, not to sell it to hungry people. In Dave Smith, no one knew it. The railroads would ship seed wheat in time for spring planting. When the Ingalls food supplies were nearly gone and the stores had nothing to sell, the Wilders secretly sold Pa a sack of the precious wheat. The wheat was ground into the fire with a coffee mill, and Ma baked brown bread or biscuits for her family's sipping meals. Where I turned 14 during the hard winter, she slowly helped Pa and Ma with the weather storms and helped cheer Mary, Carrie, and Grace. She led them in singing songs that they knew from Sunday school, and the songs they had sung for long as they remembered. They memorized Bible verses and pieces from the Independent Fifth Reader in the dim light of the kitchen, where it started writing poetry. One of her hard winter poems shouted humor in the face of a terrible weather. You remember not the summer, for it was long ago. Remember not the summer and the rolling, blinding snow. I live with the frozen region. I will travel farther south. If you say one word against it, I will hit you in the mouth. As the winter dragged on, Almanza Wilder and one of Laura's classmates, Cap Garland, made a ferry trip across the prairie to find a supply of wheat to bring back to Dave Smith. The town was so close to Pamai that only the depressed search could help. The boys found a settler with wheat, bought it, and huddled it to town, arriving just before another blizzard hit. The weeks and months slowly passed by with little relief from the blizzard winds and snow. Not until April did the storms finally stop, and not until May 10th did the first train arrive in Dave Smith. The whole winter's worth of ice and snow packed down on the tracks had taken weeks to melt and clear away. There is something about living close to the great and natural forces of nature that allows us to rise above small annoyance and discomfort. Laura asserted after the winter was over, everyone in Dave Smith had survived, but the new settlers had to admit that on Dakota Prairie, the interest rate must be respected. As soon as the snow melted and the Ingalls family left town and returned their homestead clean, but added 2 rooms to the shanty and worked along hours behind us while agering the fields and planting crops of wheat and corn. Mary and Laura took their walks again and talked of plans for Mary's education. The Reverend Alden had told Pa and Ma about the Iowa College for Blind in the town of Vision. A relative of his was a teacher there. The the school helped blind students learn to be independent, offer high school and college course studies as they heard of the school. The Ingles family helped send Mary there. During the summer of 1881, they made preparations for her enroll. Mary had always loved learning. She had always hoped to be a teacher. The school for the blind was a wonderful opportunity for Mary. Rue was so eager to help earn money for Mary's school clothes that she took a job in Naismith, sewing in a dry goods store. Pa often walked with her to town in the mornings. He was working on most of the new buildings springing up in Naismith. Working in the cramped, hot store on the main street, Rue realized how much she loved her country and how lucky her family was on their homestead. The 25 cents Rue earned each day added up to $9 for Mary's by the summer end. But Laura also bought some treats for herself. She purchased a plum for her bonnet for 60 cents, a thimble for 10 cents, a pair of cloth shoes for $1, and 4 yards of calico for 36 cents. In the fall, Paul and Mom took Mary to Victon enrolled in school. They traveled by train and were excited to reach the big brick and school building on the Austin Street with his walkways, where the students could exercise in the fun that watered the campus. The teachers all made Mary welcome, and Paul and Ma were impressed with the studies offered by the school. Mary was 16 when she started at Iowa College for the Blind, where I helped her learn through after she became blind that Mary was well prepared for the academic coursework. She would study natural history, chemistry, algebra, political economy, physiology, and rebirth. She excelled in music, learning to play the piano and organ. Pa intentionally Mary learned what she called fancy work and measures, doing knitting, weaving, and bedding work. She learned to make hammocks and fly nets for horses. The family in Naismith was lonesome for Mary, but happy that she had resumed for her education. As Laura said, I want an education so much myself. So I was very happy in thinking that Mary was getting one. Laura planned to prepare for herself teaching. It was a tradition of Mom's family, and Laura wanted very much to help earn money for Mary's school and spreads, as well as for her own clothes. And she knew Pa was investing when he could sell their farm. Money was secures. During the winter's falling, the hard winter, the Eagles family returned to Naismith each fall to live in Pa's building, where was very concerned in her schoolwork, but because she wanted to earn a teaching certificate, she was 16, although she and Carrie were first shy among the new students. At the school, they quickly made friends and settled into the routine of lessons and studying with homework. Around the lamp at home light, Laura joined her friendship with the girls such as Mary Power, Minnie Johnson, and India Brown, New Control Mister's adopted daughter. But she was horrified one day to see a new girl enter the schoolroom. And a pleasant reminder of Wanda Grove. She was Genevieve Masters. The Masters family had moved to Naismith, and Genevieve was more snobbish and mean, spirited to Laura than she had ever been. Miss Eliza Jane Wilder was the school teacher. During the fall of 1882, the lady homesteader had settled on a claim near her brothers, Royal and Amonto. Pa was on the school board, and its members had made Mrs. Wilder to teach her Naismith school. While Mrs. Wilder in charge, the school was on the disciplines and noise. Were worried that her studies would be interrupted, that she could not earn a teaching certificate. Genevieve Masters-Worth said, was the last unbearable straw. She began creating trouble between Aura and her friends, and then she told untrue tales about Aura to Mrs. Wilder, who believed them. Aura was so annoyed with Mrs. Wilder that she disappeared in rhyme writing. I feel like I'm born fool for coming to this Wayne school. What is the use of coming here, where there is no one to love or fear? Aura's friend Mary Power shared Aura's attitude about Mrs. Wilder teaching. She wrote, by gum, I must leave the school, for teachers look like such a fool. Fortunately, Mrs. Wilder taught only during the fall term of 1882. She was followed by Mr. Clement, Mr. Seasley, and finally Professor Owen. Aura was a leader in her class, and the teachers accepted and got her best work. She was especially talented at her history and writing. In the evenings as she finished studying, Aura often made rhymes and wrote long verses. She wrote so many poems that she created little books and penned in the verses in her neat handwriting. On the cover of one of her books, she wrote, when you open the book, just take one good look. If it rhymes, do not please. You can close if it sees. And on the back she wrote, if you read this book through, all it jingles, I'll let you know. It's been filled by Aura E. Ingalls. Or Elizabeth Ingalls, in case you don't know. During the summers of the homestead claims, Aura still spent hours with her books. Good reports were coming from the college blind about Mary's progress, and Aura felt the most to do her share. Progressing. Okay. I might have read that wrong. During the summers of the homestead claim, Aura still spent hours with her books. Good reports come from the College of the Blind about Mary's progress, and Aura felt she must do her share to keep her sister there. That meant capping up on their studies in preparation for becoming a teacher. One of Aura's poems expressed the way she felt about her work and achievements. If you have anything to do it with all your might. Don't let your tries hinder you. If you were sure, you're right. Work away. Do not do it with your own might.